Are you facing a situation that seems absolutely impossible? A mountain that appears too high to climb, a wall that seems too thick to break through, or a problem that looks too big to solve? Today, you're about to discover that the word impossible is not in God's vocabulary. What you're about to experience isn't just another prayer, it's a faith-igniting encounter that will shift your perspective from the size of your problem to the size of your God. The same power that spoke the universe into existence is available to speak breakthrough into your impossible situation right now. Right now, as these words penetrate the deepest places of your heart, the same God who specializes in impossible situations is looking at your circumstances and saying, "This is exactly the kind of situation I love to work in." Your impossibility is His opportunity, your dead end is His new beginning, and your hopeless situation is His chance to display His glory. This is your moment to shift your focus from what you can't do to what He can do, and to discover that with God, all things are possible. Consider the incredible story of Abraham and Sarah, who were promised a child when Abraham was 75 years old and Sarah was 65. As the years passed and Sarah remained barren, the promise seemed increasingly impossible. When Abraham was 99 and Sarah was 89, God appeared to Abraham and reaffirmed the promise, saying that Sarah would bear a son within a year. When Sarah heard this, she laughed because it seemed so impossible. She was past the age of childbearing, and Abraham was as good as dead. But God's response revealed His power over impossible situations. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Share, nothing is too hard for God. If you need to be reminded that your impossible situation is not too difficult for Him to handle. When Isaac was born exactly as God had promised, Sarah's laughter of doubt was transformed into laughter of joy. She declared, "God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me." The same God who gave Abraham and Sarah a child in their old age specializes in doing the impossible in impossible circumstances. He delights in working when the situation looks hopeless, when the odds are stacked against you, and when everyone else has given up. Your impossible situation is not a problem for God, it's an opportunity for Him to demonstrate His power and bring glory to His name. Comment, God makes the impossible possible, if you believe He's about to do something miraculous in your situation. Think about the Israelites trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's approaching army. They had just been delivered from 400 years of slavery in Egypt, but now they found themselves in what appeared to be an impossible situation. Behind them was the most powerful army in the world, ahead of them was an uncrossable sea, and on both sides were mountains. There was literally no way out. The people cried out in fear, "It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." But Moses' response revealed the heart of faith in impossible situations. Do not be afraid. Stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will accomplish for you today. Share, I will see God's salvation, if you're choosing to stand still and watch God work instead of panicking about your circumstances. When Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on their right hand and on their left. When the Egyptians pursued them into the sea, God caused their chariot wheels to come off, and when all the Israelites had crossed safely, He caused the waters to return and cover the entire Egyptian army. What had seemed like certain destruction became complete deliverance, and what appeared to be an impossible trap became a miraculous escape route. Comment, God makes a way where there is no way, if you believe He's about to open a path through your impossible situation. Consider Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who faced the impossible choice between worshipping King Nebuchadnezzar's golden image or being thrown into a fiery furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. They could have compromised their faith to save their lives, but instead they made a declaration that revealed their trust in God's power over impossible situations. Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and He will deliver us from your hand, O King. But if not, let it be known to you, O King, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. Their faith wasn't based on getting the outcome they wanted, it was based on trusting God regardless of the outcome. Share, but if not, I still trust, if you're committed to trusting God even if He doesn't deliver you the way you expect. When they were thrown into the furnace, something impossible happened. They walked around unharmed in the fire, and a fourth man appeared with them who looked like the Son of God. The fire that was meant to destroy them became the place where they encountered God's presence in a deeper way. When they came out of the furnace, they didn't even smell like smoke, and not a hair on their heads was singed. Their impossible situation became a testimony of God's power that caused King Nebuchadnezzar to decree that no one could speak against their God. The same God who walked with them in the fire is walking with you in your impossible situation. Comment, God walks with me in the fire, if you sense His presence even in the midst of your trial. Think about Elijah on Mount Carmel, facing 450 prophets of Baal in what seemed like an impossible contest. The challenge was simple: whichever God answered by fire would be proven to be the true God. The prophets of Baal went first, crying out to their God from morning until evening, cutting themselves and dancing around their altar, but there was no voice, no answer, and no fire. When it was Elijah's turn, he made the challenge even more impossible by having the altar and sacrifice drenched with water 3 times until the water ran around the altar and filled the trench. Then he prayed a simple prayer: Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel and I am your servant. Share, let it be known you are God, if you want God to demonstrate His power through your impossible situation. Immediately, the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the dust, and even licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Elijah's impossible situation became a platform for God to display His power and turn an entire nation back to Him. The same God who answered Elijah's prayer with fire is ready to answer your prayers in ways that will leave no doubt about His power and presence in your life. Comment, God answers with fire, if you're expecting Him to demonstrate His power in your impossible situation. Consider the widow of Zarephath, who was down to her last handful of flour and a little oil in a jar when the prophet Elijah asked her to make him a cake first. She was facing an impossible situation. She and her son were about to starve to death, and now a prophet was asking her to give away her last meal. But Elijah's promise revealed God's heart for impossible situations. The bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth. She chose to obey despite the impossibility of the situation, and the flour and oil lasted throughout the entire famine. Share, God multiplies my last, if you need Him to stretch what little you have into more than enough. The widow's obedience in her impossible situation not only saved her own life and her son's life but also sustained the prophet Elijah during the famine. Her willingness to give when she had nothing to give released a miracle of multiplication that lasted for years. The same God who multiplied the widow's flour and oil can multiply whatever you have, no matter how small or insufficient it seems. Your little becomes much in His hands, and your impossibility becomes His opportunity to demonstrate His provision. Comment, my little becomes much, if you're trusting God to multiply what you have into what you need. Think about Lazarus, who had been dead for 4 days when Jesus finally arrived in Bethany. His sisters Mary and Martha were devastated, and everyone agreed that the situation was hopeless. If Jesus had come earlier, He could have healed Lazarus, but now it was too late. Even when Jesus said, "Your brother will rise again," Martha thought He was talking about the resurrection at the last day. But Jesus' declaration revealed His power over the most impossible situation of all: "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live." When they rolled away the stone from the tomb, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." Share, Jesus calls me forth, if you need Him to speak life into your dead situation. Lazarus came out of the tomb, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and Jesus said, "Loose him, and let him go." The man who had been dead for 4 days was not only alive but completely restored. His impossible situation became the greatest miracle of Jesus' ministry and caused many people to believe in Him. The same Jesus who called Lazarus forth from the dead is calling forth life in your impossible situation. What seems dead and buried is about to be resurrected by His power. Comment: God resurrects dead situations, if you believe He's about to bring life to what seems hopeless. Consider the disciples in the boat during the storm, when the waves were so high and the wind so strong that they thought they were going to perish. They had been rowing against the wind for hours and were making no progress. The situation seemed impossible. They were experienced fishermen, but this storm was beyond their ability to handle. But in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came to them walking on the water, and when He got into the boat, the wind ceased immediately. What had been an impossible situation became a demonstration of Jesus' power over the forces of nature. Share: Jesus walks on my storms, if you need Him to come to you in the midst of your impossible circumstances. When Peter saw Jesus walking on the water, he asked to walk on water too, and Jesus said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water toward Jesus, doing the impossible because he kept his eyes on the one who makes all things possible. The same Jesus who enabled Peter to walk on water is enabling you to do the impossible in your situation. When you keep your eyes on Him instead of on the storm, you can walk on top of the very thing that threatens to overwhelm you. Comment: I walk on my storms, if you're choosing to focus on Jesus' power rather than your problem size.